Hello, see this wall? I guess one can say it is beautiful, for those that are into the strong silent type. What everyone else can agree is that the setting is awesome, a location to die for, even literally, as we'll see. The wall in itself is very old, at least 4,000 years old, making it older than anything like it in the mainland. But that is uncertain, because the only way to properly date really old sites is to do carbon 14 testing on the bones of the people that used to live there. Unfortunately, these tests are quite rare, mostly because academics are lazy and don't do them often enough. However, in this case, there's another cause. It is the bones themselves that are not easy to find, leading us to unearth two things. One is a creepy, grim, morbid story that I don't know if YouTube has the stomach for it. And the other one is taking us closer to the lost ancient culture as we can ever be. So let's dig in for those bones. Today's wall is in Sardinia, the island in the Mediterranean Sea. That is, at the same time, the most interesting and the less known site of antiquity, and also, at times, just very weird. Let me put it this way. In Sardinia, there is a cheese that is made with maggots, larvas. Still, it is considered the ultimate delicacy. Yes, they are bonkers over there. But believe me, by the time we end up this trip, you will realize the maggot cheese somewhat fits with the ancient lost people we are looking for. So let's look back at what they were building on back then on the island, starting with the Nuragis. These are some 9,000 odd towers built throughout the Bronze Age, all over the place, virtually one per hill and a few extra on flatlands. None of these towers was made with elegant polygonal walls. However, they were for sure a must have for the folks around them. Much more sophisticated and better fitted, yet also not polygonal, are the sacred wells, combining water sources with incomprehensible usage. Regardless of what for, the old people built at least 50 of these things that we know of. Domos de Janas are just caves, arguably used for bone storage, and are relevant mostly because Janas is a word for fairy in the Iberian Peninsula. And also, the size of the caves suggests they were very small people. Or to the contrary, and most important for our investigation, are the tombs of giants, some elaborate structures with monumental facades that seem to be an evolution of the dolmens found elsewhere in Europe. Also in Sardinia, and on top of all the previously mentioned unique structures, the land offers from the circular wall shown at the beginning to traditional dolmens and whatever this strange pedestal is, in a full house of mysterious ruins. Many of these structures are really old, arguably older than anything to be found in mainland Italy or nearby Sicily, making Sardinia the strangest, most unique place in all of ancient Europe, and the prime candidate for any lost civilization to call home. This is not about Sardinia. Awesome as that place is, it is only a drop in the sea of the Cyclops, as you know if you've been following this channel. However, there might be one or even two that are new here. So, first of all, be aware that you are missing big time. And also, let's recap the main idea. A long time ago, the south of Europe was occupied by the most incredible, mysterious folks you can think of. These people went on by many names, but I rather fancy the term Cyclops because of the one eyed giant. This lost civilization was completely erased from history books, despite leaving us the best stoneworks of antiquity, Cyclopean or polygonal walls, meaning a structure built with odd shaped stones cut to fit one to another and assembled without mortar, sometimes achieving impossible stone matching. One can say just a particular construction style would not be enough to identify a culture. That's why the people building these stone wonders have a lot more in common, such as their language, their politics, and their recurrent use of towers, or better said, pedestals. Starting with the south of Spain, where a handful of these extra large tables are still discoverable today, including a couple sharing the mythical name fig tree. A stranger name is given to the Frictoria in Greece. These are small roofless boxes in really high quality stonework, spread out onto the landscape as beacons of sorts. Taulas or talayots are yet another bizarre naming, and how the platforms are called in the Balearic Islands. These come out in different shapes, but unmistakably including the principle of a pedestal, or the monumental Italian Acropolis in the mainland. These are magnificent cities, built with colossal polygonal walls around a pedestal too good to be ignored, leading most of them platforms to have been reused for Greco Roman temples and later churches. Finally, and maybe unrelated, in other Cyclopean locations such as Lusitania, there are the abstract thrones that, although on a smaller scale and carved into solid rock, seem to fit the same purpose of a pedestal, whatever that is. If the builders left us all these fancy constructions, why aren't they recognized as a culture? Well, it's complicated and would lead to a rant that never ends about crooked academia and the grant sucking industrial complex like the one I'm doing right now and should not. Overall, the major problem is that all those structures, i.e., the pedestals, have nothing on top. No buildings, no writing on the wall, but most importantly, no bones. Usually, human beings using such structure would leave their traces, including bones, but there's none of it in the pedestals, leading to the craziest theories about the Cyclopean origins. One of the most stupid and persistent is the idea that cyclops are derived from the nasal cavity of an elephant skull, being confused for a one eyed giant by infantile Greeks. That is absurd, because the ancient Greeks knew perfectly well what an elephant was. Elephant is in fact a Greek word. Greeks named the island Elephantine in southern Egypt, referring to the elephants living there. And Alexander, Pyrrhus, and Hannibal actually fought battles with elephants. But most importantly, there are the bones, or the absence of them. Never was an elephant bone found in a Cyclopean context, meaning around the Cyclopean pedestal, which is normal. What is not normal is that there are not a lot of human bones around, of any size. If I'm proposing the walls were built by man and not by giants, where are the bones to prove it? Yes, there are no extra large elephant like skulls to be found within any Cyclopean walls. But you know what? There are no human bones either, not from the Bronze Age, And if people were building and using these structures or pedestals at the time, they would stick their dead bones in it, wouldn't they? To find them bones, we have to return to Sardinia. Because Sardinia was special. It was a safe haven for all things Cyclopean. Because everywhere else, at around 1500 to 1000 BC, new populations have invaded and conquered and replaced and erased everything that the Cyclopean builders represented. Except in Sardinia, that was preserved out of luck and malaria from the incoming hordes of new peoples, during a tumultuous period called the Bronze Age collapse, followed by the appropriately named Greek Dark Ages, when Cyclopean walls simply disappear all over Europe. Except in Sardinia, where the Cyclopean culture, locally known as the Nuragic, persisted until the arrival of the Romans, thus providing us proper written sources about what meant to be a Cyclopean builder. Except in Sardinia, where they also saved some bones from that era, tucked away in the tombs of giants, those strange houses or dolmens of sorts I mentioned were important, and now you know. It was because they were packed with second-hand bones. Don't get all excited. The bones found inside the tombs of giants are not of giants. They are regular sized people. However, they are no more normal than that, as the bones were excarnated. Yes, awful, really, if one knows what excarnation means. Let me explain. Excarnated bones are part of a gross ritual, whereas the dead bodies are first exposed to the environment for removal of the flesh and then packed away in some other location. This is also called secondary burial, using a less disgusting and broad term to disguise the different ways excarnation can be done, each one the worse. There's a reburial, when a dead body was buried in a temporary spot to be eaten away by maggots, and afterwards the bare bones are dug up and moved elsewhere. It's bad, but not as bad as the others, and for that reason tends to be the more common practice. Then the most gruesome is when the flesh is removed by knives, with the family chopping away the meat as if it was pork chops. And guess what? Not using proper knives even. This was done in the Neolithic Europe, with stone tools, hammering away Grandpa's muscles out of his bones. Wicked. Finally, the sky burial or towers of silence, still practiced in some places to this day, with the dead body being exposed to animals, vultures, and other predators to eat away the flesh. This was common in Iran and Tibet until recently, when the new rulers of those places, out of outrage, outright banned the practice, leaving us a proper clue to what could have happened to the Cyclopean builders, both to their bones and to the reason why people vanished. Maybe the towers or pedestals were used for exposure of the dead bodies that would later be moved into some special place, like a giant's tomb. And also, whenever a new conquered arrived on site, they would find the practice disgusting and suppress it. Confused yet? Don't be. This is easy to solve. It's in the bones. Excarnation leaves its marks in more than one place. First, in where the bones are found, and second, in what happened to them. Take note. If the dead bodies were being excarnated, the bones would be found deposited in a special ritual place, all dismembered, dismantled, and with cut marks of some sort, for when the process involved knives or teeth or beaks. That is precisely what happened in the Cyclopean sites, almost everywhere. In Sardinia, the tombs of the giants were fully packed with dismembered bones, and a few chopped off, although not enough to be certain of what cut them. In mainland Italy, the customary burial practice during the Bronze Age was shoving away the bones into caves, thus explaining why we cannot find proper dead bodies in the pedestals themselves. In the Balearic Islands, the navetas would be just like the tombs of giants, packed with dismantled bones. In Croatia, the people of Monkodonja had several play uses for their bones, taking skulls home and piling the rest into collective tumuli. So, this settles it. The Cyclopean builders were practicing excarnation all across Europe. But where? Could it be that the towers or pedestals were like those in Iran, used for exposing dead bodies to wild animals? Well, not really. The second way secondary burial would show off is in the little things, like toes, that are left on the original site of excarnation, dropped and not carried into the secondary burial site. However, there is no indication that any of the pedestals was ever littered with little fingers. The pedestals in many places have been reused by churches, temples, and the like, so the little things might get lost twice. However, that was not the case of the Nuragic towers in Sardinia. See, if the towers were used for excarnation to deal with dead bodies, they would become unlivable due to the rot. But the Sardinian towers have clear signs of inhabitation, making them more like houses for the living than towers of silence for the dead. Granted, the Sardinians are crazy with their maggot cheese and stuff, but I do not think it is enough for them to have the decomposing relative around the sofa. Here's the thing, the Cyclopean builders, our favorite lost culture, would practice secondary burial, that's for sure. Their bones prove it by being left all jumbled up in caves and tombs of giants and navetas and whatnot. This could also be the reason why the people building them walls vanished, after being suppressed by disgusted invaders who would not want to take part in the wicked ritual. However, we are not sure how the excarnation actually took place, be it done with large animals or small maggots like the cheese. Not even where they did it, because there is no evidence set packed with misplaced toes. Thus, the pedestals remain a mystery. Despite the lack of broken fingers, they still could have been used for excarnation, or alternatively for something way more disgusting politics. Considering, as we'll see next, that we keep on pushing the most popular idea the Cyclops ever had democracy. That's it for today. Hope you liked it. Drop an eye in the comments.